Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Flex That Worx. I'm your host, Anne-Marie, and I'm joined by Graham, CEO of Baseworx. If you've been listening along since we started the podcast this year, then you're going to enjoy today's episode because what we decided to do was review the year a little bit, all the events we've been to, most recently Coworking Europe in Berlin, and give you some tips on, some takeaways for the year, what you can look to do within your space as the year is drawing to a close, and things to have in mind going into next year, into 2026. How are you doing, Graham?
Good now. Yeah, just this is the week after Berlin, which was great, very intense. Lots going on. Lots and lots going on.
So tell me, from what you saw in Berlin, what you're seeing day to day, all the events we've been to over the past couple of weeks, how would you describe the state of the co-working industry right now?
Kind of like the formation of the earth when it was just all lava and volcanoes going off and the outer crust was starting to form. That's effectively what the co-working industry is like at the moment. There's just so much going on. And I think it's so early, still early days. But you can start to see it mature in a big way now. Still lots of new phrases, desks are new workstations, spec suites, tailored offices. We're all saying the same thing in different ways. There was one chap at the end of one of the talks, he put his hand up and he had a question. He was like, can we start standardising the talk? Are we, what can we start standardising the phraseology? So, the fact that we're all speaking the same, speaking about the same thing in different ways, I think says a lot. If that's how people are speaking about it, can imagine what's happening operationally and behind the scenes. As people are starting to come into the market, go out of the market, as brands are starting to scale up, the big conversation between hospitality and community. It's a really colourful space to be involved in at the moment. No bags to talk about, Emery.
Yeah, so you could say, and look, in this chat, what we'll do is kind of talk about the trends that we've seen, the direction we think things are going based on everything we're hearing, and then some practical tips just from a business ownership perspective. Co-working is officially mainstream, or at least getting there, right? So competition, expectations, pressure, it's all increased. So what do you think operators maybe most underestimate about the shift that's happening at the moment?
I think one of the key things I took away was the professionalisation of the industry, being driven by the bigger, I don't want to use the word shinier, but look, the bigger brands, the shinier brands, the high street, downtown metropolitan brands that are listed on stock exchanges and everything else. They're viewed as being the leaders of the industry. And I find that they're having an influence that's trickling down into the smaller independents who are now kind of seem to be putting that pressure on themselves to appeal to a broader audience. The idea of, a co-working space, kind of upcycled spaces, with a bit of plyboard and some spray paint, and we all get together on a Saturday and paint the space together and make it our little clubhouse type of thing. There's a new entrant to the market. There's a new, ideal customer profile in the sense that it's the owners of more mature businesses. The head of HR could now be an ICP for you. So they're starting to, what you're starting to see essentially is serviced offices is now clashing with the open plan co-working segment that we were all kind of used to this stage. Yeah, so I think new client types essentially, and now people
so
are
reviewing
saying,
the niche, and maybe for operators to keep a view on the new entrants to the market actually from an audience perspective, and reviewing whether you're still best matched with the audience that's available, maybe.
Exactly, and I think it just it's as I said, the people coming in the door are different now. It could be different now because it's appealing to a broader audience. We've had podcasts in the past where accidental co-working spaces start, and then you have a freelancer here, a startup there, a 1-man, 2-man band kind of coming in and going out. It's now an employee from a well-known household brand coming in the door that have
Yeah.
security expectations when it comes to your broadband. They might need quiet areas, and they just have that kind of more polished expectation because, you were in PropTech London. You saw the goings on there with with the asset managers and the landlords and the amount of investment that they're putting in to make in their spaces.
The
The,
sum, the amount that's in the offering, aside from the desk or the
yeah,
office or whatever,
yeah.
is huge. Yeah, for sure. Members, I would say to that point, are now expecting a pretty seamless kind of self-serve, frictionless experience. A lot of that newer audience that's coming in. Where do you think some operators maybe not quite falling behind, but maybe there's an opportunity for them to close the gap a little bit or stay with the times a bit?
Look, we live in a world of technology where technology is very, very accessible now. And I think of a lot of operators that are, what I do is fine, and it ain't broke, so I'm not going to fix it. I think those guys need to kind of take a moment to pause and reflect and see where they can buy back some of their time. I sat in on a talk. Very interesting chap, runs a space in Malaga. Very aware of the seasonality of his space, of the digital nomad type of characters that come in and go out of his space as well. But he spends $2,500 a year on technology. Small space, not an incredibly big space. Spends $2,500, and he reckons it replaces a full-time staff member. So he's saving. If you're talking somebody on 25 grand a year, right? He's saving himself 10 times what he would be paying, and he's using a number of automations and integrations that gives him full oversight, and again, it allows him to use the time he has to promote his space. He was massive on building community as well, and he just puts hands up, said, I spend $2,500 on software a year, and it gives me back all this time so I can have crack and fun with my people, and they stay longer. Makes loads of sense.
As we always say, the role of technology is not to do the human job, it's to free the human to do the human job.
Exactly.
Because you're uniquely placed in your space as an operator to do very particular work that only you can do. Namely around building community, which is the backbone of retention, reducing churn, bringing new members in. It's the most important work you're going to do. So holding out on putting tech in or reviewing your tech and making sure you have the best tech available, the best spend available, all of that is something that I think we just have to all get a bit more maybe agile at keeping in view on what's out there. Even if you don't change over, just keep a view of what's available. And I mean change over not just between tech providers, change over from WhatsApp and Excel sheets maybe, you know what I mean?
And that's it.
Just keep a view.
But again, you have to be very conscious that the Coworking operators and managers, especially the smaller, it's actually probably harder to run a small space because you're trying to get,
and you're up the walls.
You're up the walls,
So
but
busy.
doesn't matter how big you are. You still have a coffee machine that needs to be refilled.
That's it.
We've often talked to operators and where do my days go? Well, this chap was gas anyway. He was like, I have all my time back, so I went to where they trained in. He's a Wim Hof trained.
Breath work.
So he's like,
Fantastic.
I was like, I had a ready-made audience for my new training, so I got to test it out in my community. So now they're all into Wim Hof. They have ice baths in the middle of Malaga. So that's a value proposition. Get your tech in order so you can do some breath work with your community.
That's such a perfect way of putting it. It's like, imagine what you could do if you got some time back for yourself. Okay, perfect. So that's the tech side. So in terms of coming into the end of 2025 then, right, and looking at the year ahead, start with an honest audit, perhaps. I know you're a fan of a good audit in any business. Operators often base decisions on kind of invoices, maybe not always the reality of the business. How do you think they should actually audit who's using the space? What's a good method for someone who's a bit time starved coming into the end of the year? When you say audit your space, what are you actually saying?
It's straightforward enough to audit the metrics, the easily measured stuff. Bums on seats versus bums not on seats. Money this year versus last year. All of that's really straightforward to do. And how you do the other bits, the human elements, the human centric pieces. Again, it's up to you as an operator. Do you sit down and do an annual review with each of your members? Megan from the RDI, that's something she does on a regular basis. She doesn't do it to the end of the year. You remember that podcast? Do you fire an old and it was survey around. I think there was one, look, there's these anonymous suggestion boxes. Do you fire one of those around a Google Forms? I don't know. And again, like the great thing with ChatGPT and all these kind of things, you can fire this up and get it to analyze the data. We live in a new world. We live in the future now.
In Berlin, we heard so much about metrics across the industry and the numbers that we're looking at. That is fantastic to have visibility of, general numbers that work or measurements that work across a wide, variety of types of spaces across regions. Of course, as an operator, you've got the finger on the pulse, right, in your own space. So you have a sense as to what success looks like for you. Is it, as we said, we've met innovation spaces that judge success by the amount of companies that start, scale and leave.
Yeah.
We're just off a conversation with somebody who judges success by longevity of somebody staying in their space because, she mentioned that their kids were there in nappies and now their kids are coming in as a second generation of user of the space. That's a really different success metric, you know what I mean? Maybe it's, what's the rate of new members we got that really fit the vibe and have lent into the community. So you might just know in your bones that you're successful and you've got a strong year ahead. It might not be something that's on a dashboard,
And again, we see it ourselves, Emery, with the broad amount of, spaces that we work with. They all have a different reason for starting their business. Some of them are accidental, some of them are deliberate, some of them are to give back to the wider community, and others are absolutely, they want to build the next WeWork. They have ambitions to build, the next Mindspace, whatever it may be. So I think as an operator, and this goes for any business in a sense, it's like you need to define, what is your success? Is it setting up a business that one day a month in it? That might be success for you. Somebody else might be looking at you and going, if you're not IPOing, you're not successful. So I think it's having the bottle and the conviction to decide what suits you, what suits your aspirations, and that comes for co-working spaces all day long.
Yeah, and I think like looking at who actually is using the space, when they're using it, what their behaviour what kind of behaviour the environment that you've built naturally supports, and that's going to feed into the type of membership base you need to be looking to expand for next year, the type of members that you want to bring towards you. In terms of strengthening,
if you need to expand, if you're happy with what you have, double down. And that was another interesting point I took from the same chap in Malaga. It was like events were massive for my business initially, and we used that to promote. And he said we went outside the space to promote. So we were at every chamber meeting, we were at every startup meetup, we were at every, conference, we were at tourist things, trying to tell people about the space. So he was on, where did he put it? Yeah, external with the events. Once he built his client base, he then brought the events internal. So it was just events, private events for his community. It was just us. And the funny thing is, he actually said one of the key things I thought was very interesting was get your people outside the co-working space if you want to strengthen them in the co-working space. So they go hiking, they go on like bus trips, they do loads of stuff. And I thought about ourselves here in West Cork. We do the same thing. We all go swimming, we do our own things. We've, pints outside, all that kind of good stuff. We should do more of that, but I just thought that was
doing way more of that.
That was his strategy of his play, and I just thought he was the first person I've heard define that in a clear, presentable manner, and that struck with me,
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and the next point that I'm thinking about is strengthening your commercial model. We often talk about spaces that are just brand new and how they then need to kind of stabilize. They've been on the go for a while, and actually a space might not be new, but it still needs to go through a bit of a stabilization to have something predictable happening before you can even think about scaling and growth, if that's what you want to do. And look, even if you're not scaling or growing your business, you still, like any business, needs to be ready to adapt when big changes come or something unexpected happens. So maybe it's also a time to think about the commercial model you have in place, and are there any risk factors that you're not built for. I don't think there's many spaces like, the combination of co-working plus COVID. I'd say pretty much anyone who's been in this world at all constantly has mitigating factors in their head all the time and always thinking about how they're best suited and what they would do if something came next. But coming into the end of 2025, I think it's worth having a little think about the commercial model you've got, how it's working for you. You're going to expand in the new year. How are you going to do that? Is it a waiting list? Do you keep your bucket tour? Do you move from a bucket tour to experience days? We've heard a lot of people saying they're moving, instead of a bucket tour where people come in and they walk them around for an hour, and nobody really takes anything in. But do you
Yeah.
actually let them instead come in for a morning and take a call and go and make a coffee themselves and see how they properly feel within
Yeah.
the space?
I
So
personally,
focusing on revenue.
I'm a big fan of the 3 days aspects of it.
Yeah, I think it's worth it.
One of
I
the
don't
things
think
was
you're really.
like,
It's like viewing a house. You're going to walk around the house and you're just nodding at the estate
you
agent
know
versus
yourself,
actually
like
having an hour on your own to make a couple of tea and see if you like the place, you know?
you know, I think, like with all rented houses and, if you're lucky enough to buy houses, the minute you walk in, whether a space is for you or not. And I think that's going to happen with co-working spaces as well.
Yeah.
I don't think you can, maybe I'm just, in my opinion, I don't think I could be sold a co-working space that I don't get a good feeling about when I walk in.
That's it.
You know,
So, like, what I think about is the operator's time to be doing all these tours, whereby if there's a free desk in the corner, let somebody sit at it for a few hours, and if they're going to sign up, they'll sign up, you know?
and
So
empower your
maybe that's
members.
something to think
Your
about.
members are your biggest advocates. Sure, they buy this, they buy the service off you every month or
But you
year or
see it
whatever it is.
yourself. If a tour comes in here to our space, I don't speak to anyone who's on a tour because they're busy, they're occupied with the operator. Whereas if somebody's just in for a morning, even just taking a call and they're in the kitchen, I'll totally have a chat with them, you know? So you'll engage much more with people when they're just on their own steam in the space. So I think in terms of a strategy going into the new year, that means updating your website. That means changing your call to action. It's going from book a tour to here's an option for half a day. Do you qualify people? You know, and not everybody maybe gets a half a day. Do you decide who gets the half a day? Just all little things to think about for how you're going to maybe grow your membership into the
And
new year.
again, look, I've been consistently banging the drum about, allowing people to book and turn up themselves, self-serve. It's good to see the industry starting to catch up with that now.
Totally.
The technologies out there are, it's just, thankfully now it's becoming somewhat standardized. And I can't understand why we've been so slow to, as an industry, to move towards that.
Yeah, took a while. I mean, I joined the industry this year, right? And like one of the biggest things I've noticed is like, why is this an enterprise proposition for operators operators are up the walls. They don't have tech degrees. They don't have massive budgets. This should be like Netflix, Airbnb, hotels.com. You know what I mean? It should just be, I need that desk. Let me transact. Let me pay for it. I don't want to download an app. I don't want to log in. I don't want to. But look, I do think things are coming together. I mean, years ago, we saw that we became such savvy users of technology in our personal lives that we just expect that to translate into business tech when we go to work. So what we're doing, for work has to translate. I shouldn't know that I'm on a B2B or a business app versus a customer app, you know what I mean? On my same iPhone. And it's great to see, people catching up now in the industry, blending the experience of both together. I know it's one of the reasons I started with Baseworx was to see that you had that focus on the end user, the operator and their audiences all the time, Okay, so in terms of then of reducing admin, increasing autonomy, which is a really nice kind of a blend into that because that's the self-serve consumer aspect. When I was choosing a CRM platform for us here, I signed up for that on like a Thursday evening or something. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I just wanted to log in and crack on and, have a little look around and see if I wanted to stay on past the trial period, So I think it's worth for operators maybe looking at like how they're actually spending their time. That's worth it no matter what you're doing, be it in work or outside of work. Identifying the tasks that are draining the most time. What are you actually spending your time on? Standardizing some processes, even if you congratulate yourself for having quite an organic kind of a space, an accidental co-working space, maybe really strong community, you still have very natural processes. So it's worth just taking a step back, looking at what they are. And if you can put a bit of self-serve in there anywhere, you don't have to be involved in every which way that your audience interacts with your space. Just let them do it themselves.
My own approach on self-auditing my time and where I'm spending it, because look, like everybody, it's like you get up, you go to work before you know it, it's 5 o'clock and you're asking them to stay for another hour and that. The days fly. So what I do personally, take my Google Calendar for a week or 2 or 3 or even a month. And Google Calendar has colours there. I'll colour code it for it. And then I'll look back over the month and say, Jesus, I might spend a lot of time doing, work and this. Should I offload that? There's other nice little apps that you can have running in the background of your laptop. Rescue Time is a free one. Go use that one. And what happens is at the end of the week, you'll get a little report on a Sunday night, great Sunday night, reminding that you've worked the next morning to say that you've done 27 hours of productive work. It's up or down from last week, and here are the apps that you've used. And again, you can edit these apps. So if social media is your role, that's obviously productive. If social media isn't a part of what you do, that's distracting work. So it'll actually give you a bit of a gauge. So those are two things I'd give any operator in any
They're
business.
great, yeah. If you're
to
not a
consider.
techie, you can pull out a piece of paper, have it up beside you, and literally write out the different areas you spend your time and put a line next to it each time you get pulled off your task. The Pomodoro technique, can you go 20 minutes focused on one thing, or are the coffee beans gone and is there toilet roll missing, and do you have to submit a slide deck to the board, as an operator, where are you actually getting dragged all over the place? Or do you find you're actually spending your entire day managing somebody on email who wants to book a hot desk for €30,
And look, listen, the amount of space operators that we engage with, and there's, I need more bodies, I need more staff, and that may be true, but you may not need them yet if you can get your processes in order. I mean, again, like ChatGPT and all these different AIs at the moment, that's like superpowers, right? They should definitely be freeing up some airtime at this stage.
They're superpowers. And to anyone who hasn't dipped the toe yet, and maybe historically will be a bit slow to get going with tech and is a little bit anti-AI or just doesn't know what to expect yet, I think it's safe to say it's at a stage now that it's secure. It can be really trained in line with your business. And I suppose remember that the AI is not telling you to do anything. You've trained it, right? So rubbish in, rubbish out. If you train it well, you're going to get great insights back that can form a support for your space and the role you have there. And you can decide how much or how little you want to use it. But it's kind of like saying, I'm not going to get into cars. I'm just going to stay with the old horse and cart. Like, it's here. So it's always a good idea to get involved with these things sooner rather than later, because then you see it evolve, you build a relationship with it, you always have context, and then you decide what that kind of tech is going to mean for your space. 2026, we're going to see probably a pretty quick progression in what's available in tech and AI. So by getting, your feet in under the table with it between now and Christmas, I think it's well worth seeing maybe. And when you've done this nice audit of what your processes and systems look like in the business, where you're spending your time, then when you do start to look at ChatGPT or any of the options that are out there in the AI space, you're just going to get a very clear view of where you can start to introduce it and start seeing changes, and do it in phases. Like, you'd bring anything in, doesn't have to be a big bang, just bring it in, and maybe in your own, as a person running the space, as the boss, you just start optimizing your own time with it maybe, or, and optimizing your energy as well. This is about making better use of your time and your energy.
And all of these kind of things. But I think one thing you need to do, the first thing you need to do is, am I doing repetitive tasks and like that are taking up my time? You know what I mean? And identify the repetitive stuff. Ask yourself, is there somebody or something that can do this for me? And go from there. That's another approach to take.
Totally. And you know what? To speak just to the reality of that for a minute, if somebody is always stuck into the same things all the time, there might be an element of like, oh, Jesus, where would I even start if I had that time back and if I was free, It's, again, pen and paper, a bit of blue sky thinking. If you had 20 extra minutes in the day, or an extra hour or 2 hours in the week, where would you spend it? Would it enable you to do your Wim Hof training, like your operator in Malaga? Like, where could it open things up for you? How would you actually, it sounds silly because everybody says, geez, I'd love more time, but where would you actually spend it if you had it? And then that's going to make you a lot more driven to go ahead and simplify your processes if you know where your time's going to go.
The other thing that,
one Graham, you're mad to get in, go on.
Unpopular opinion here, and people aren't going to agree with me, but sometimes repetitive actions are like a comfort blanket for people.
That's what I mean.
It's like, what?
It feels uncomfortable. There's dissonance. I'm safe in this thing I always do. But is it actually the best thing for the business and the business goals going forward? And coming to the end of the year, let's get real, given everything that's available. And look, if you're in a space like regionally, geographically, where you've got some competition coming in, you need to be looking at how well the business is running. And if there's tools out there that your competitor is using, I think we've all heard it a lot now. AI won't take your job, but a human with AI will take your job. So, don't say you weren't warned kind of thing. You know what I mean? We just have to get on board with it now at this point. Okay, so The other thing I was thinking about coming into the end of the year is planning your space intentionally. One thing we have heard at loads of events this year, including PropTech, the GCUC events, and most recently Berlin, Coworking Europe, was around remodeling of spaces. When I started in the industry earlier this year, people said to me, "Oh, I don't do co-working. You said co-working software. We don't have co-working." And now coming, everyone was flex in offices. And now coming to the end of the year, people are saying, "Oh, we're just going to trial putting back in a few co-working desks."
Yeah.
And then, like you mentioned, they're now becoming workstations. So I think everyone is in the space of just reviewing how the space is being used. I think that marries up with more people turning to co-working than previously had. Co-working's becoming more mainstream, and maybe those people just want to try a couple of desks. They're not ready for the office yet, so now the demand for desks maybe is turning up again. So looking at the behaviours of the type of people that come into your space, improving the basics like access into the space, the acoustics, signage. If you've got a lot of new members coming in, is it obvious for them nobody likes to walk around a place feeling like they're the Dumbo who can't work it out. You know what I mean? So like, are you ensuring a good experience and flow and use of space?
Giving up either. Do you know, these passive aggressive, don't do this.
Yeah, nobody's saying you can't go in there actually. You want to avoid all of that. That's the hospitality aspect, Graham. Like your client is your, they get the white glove service, So supporting the rise of the kind of local, the hybrid kind of working patterns, I think that's something that is now a responsibility for operators. You might have started out a community-based space where everyone knew the drill, but now you've got somebody who's in a 9 to 5 coming in trying co-working for the first time, and you're the person they're meeting. You're literally the face of the industry for that person. So is your space set up for it correctly? Have you got a good setup in the space for the revenue model as well, but also an experience for the type of person who's coming in the door? Just clarity around that. I think it's worth reviewing coming into the end of the year.
I mean, definitely review your offering mix. I do see a lot of people kind of putting their offices back into spaces, with prefab walls and glass walls and all that kind of stuff. And they do give a nice amount of recurring revenue, and there's a security in that. And desks are now becoming more accessible. They're more convenient to book now, thankfully. So definitely a bit of an audit on, are you getting the most out of your space? And there's actually some pretty cool technologies, probably beyond the need of smaller operators, but heat mapping and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, you can do this yourself. Again, be conscious of it. It doesn't need to be. Not everything needs to be scientific.
If you're paying attention, it goes a long way. Okay, I have two points left, right, on my list. The next one is operational resilience. So, not relying on yourself anymore, because those days are gone, in terms of not minding your energy, burning yourself out. We just had a great chat with somebody who's got into her human design as an operator and understanding when she best interacts with members, when she's at her best in terms of planning for the business, how she can best support everyone in the space in that mom or dad role as needs to happen. And you're also the strategic direction. So operationally, there needs to be something in place that it's not all resting on your shoulders. So if that means documenting your processes, planning for handovers, if there's a change in staff at some point during the year, that it doesn't completely throw all the apples out of the cart for you in 2026. And also, is there an opportunity to develop any members of your team? Do you want to bring somebody in? What would you need to do if you're looking to hire in 2026? What do you need to have in place now? So just an element of maturity around processes and the operations that you have in the business, something that I was thinking would be useful for you.
I think you need to do, again, a fair reflection, an honest reflection. And if you're the single owner operator of a space, or you have a tiny team and you seem to feel that nothing happens without you, you have to do some serious reflection and say, if I didn't turn up in the morning, what would happen? And then you need to think about delegation, you need to think about robust processes, you need to think about where your staff are at from a training perspective. And asking those honest questions should hopefully direct you in what you need to do for 26.
100%. And then for the year ahead is the one that probably most people might have started with this, but I think all the elements we've gone through lay the foundation for this. Set yourself some meaningful goals. So we talked before about the rhythms of a business and knowing the rhythms of your business based on where it is and what type of audience you have coming in. Plan in seasons throughout the year. Look at the KPIs that matter for your space and think about how you're going to track them, how often you're going to track them, who in the business tracks them, what that looks like. What's your conversion like from these experience days or your tours, whatever you decide to do? Are you looking at the admin hours that you've saved if you've gone ahead and audited where
Yeah.
you're spending your time? And what's the actual utilization of your space? So we'd be thinking then about 3 essentials essentially in 2026 to really move the needle for operators. And sometimes this might feel like it's back to basics, but that's where a lot of businesses rise and fall. Getting very clear on the niche, given that the audiences are shifting and changing as we see new people coming into the market who are now aware of co-working as the market matures. Reducing the manual work and making sure you're putting the human where the human really needs to be, because we're so much more valuable in the age of AI because there's certain things only we can do. And then making your space, back to basics, make your space so easy to find and to transact with. If somebody wants to give you money, do not get in their way. If they want to come in and see your space and transact with you, at the end of the day, this is about people finding a place they love to work and signing up and staying with you. Try not to make that hard for them.
Yeah.
Anything you'd add, Graham?
No, not really. I mean, it's an exciting industry to be involved in
hugely
right
exciting. So to finish on that, we've come back from a couple of days spent in Berlin with people from all different types of spaces, sides of the industry, regions, all over the world. We had Australians, people from the US, all aspects of Europe and further afield as well. What are you most excited about for 2026?
Just the rapid evolution to see how it's going to go, you know. For me, I think the reintroduction of the office into, you know, co-working spaces, that clash of service offices with co-working, the continued adoption of the word flex work, you know, indicates a more, I don't want to say mature, but, you know, a more polished client now coming into co-working, which was historically, look, the word was viewed almost as a dirty word for a while. Oh, we don't do co-working. It was almost something that the plucky startups, the cool kids when they're, you know, Chuck's Converse wore, you know, or went to work. These are no serious places to go and work. And I think the investment in the spaces, the movement and investment from property tech companies to now, you know, try and deliver solutions that optimize these spaces. There's a big, massive shift in how we as humans work, and it's coming from all angles. So, just excited to see how it all pans out for the next 12 months and beyond, you know.
Fantastic. Yeah, agreed. I'd be on the same page. I can't wait to see how operators with one and a few spaces embrace tech and AI and leverage it. I'm really excited for the ones that get stuck in and leverage it, because I think there's huge opportunity there for them. And I think they're trying to do very admirable things for their community, and it's very important work. And I'd love to see them embrace it so that they can unlock the success that's available to them with it. And I'm also really keen to see what happens with this whole movement of real estate and what we would call the bigger brands, and this blend, you know, feels like two sides of one spectrum in some ways, that you've this organic, accidental, historical kind of co-working on one side, and this newer movement towards the landlord and theory conversations and multi-million fit outs and huge brands and this luxury element in your offering on the other side. So really exciting to see just where those two connect and blend and how audiences navigate it, because as co-working extends its reach into, as we talk about the total addressable market, there's loads of people out there who don't know they are a fit for co-working, and as they begin to realize it, it's going to be cool to see how they meet brands, how they navigate it themselves, how they choose spaces, and of course the role that tech plays in all of that, because that's our wheelhouse.
No, I just to echo that point, I think the most exciting part is the continued mainstreaming of the industry. I still think that we've only scratched the surface with the size of where we're at right now.
100%. I think we need billboards everywhere. Go back to basics. Because everyone said, I tell people I work in co-working and they go, oh, cool. And then I said, do you know what it is? And they're like, I said, do you know where your local co-working space is? Like if you wanted to go somewhere, do you know where you would go? No, I don't think I'm really a fit for co-working. You know, everyone's a fit for co-working. And we know that's the future of things. So it's going to be cool to see that unfold in 26.
Sure.
All right, we leave it there, Graham. Lovely to chat.
That was good fun.
Slán go fóill.
Slán go fóill.
Thanks for tuning in to Flex That Worx. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss our next episode. Connect with us on LinkedIn, watch the full episode on YouTube, and you can explore free tools and resources over at baseworx.co. This is Flex That Worx, powered by Baseworx, here to help you scale your workspace, making it simpler and less stressful.